the official start of the show right now in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Thursday Night AMP. I'm Stevie J, and my co-hosts are to my left and right if you're watching the live stream right now. Starting on the left with the one and only, the lovely and talented Arya Whitner. Hello.
Hello, Stevie. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad you're here with me again. And to my right is the inestimable and unflappable Hagen Kirk.
Be less lovely and talented.
Oh no, you're equally lovely and talented, and I'm sure that Skylar would tell you that if he were here right now. So, we're going to talk about all of the latest news and issues in the world of professional wrestling, and we're also going to talk about Arya's experiences in Philadelphia WrestleMania weekend. But before we get to any of that, I have a hot button topic that I feel like we have to get out of the way right off the bat. And I think this is one that Arya may have a personal stake in. It's the Oklahoma Athletic Commission sending a letter to All Elite Wrestling demanding they not commit factual inaccuracies on their disclosures for wrestlers in the state. Do you want to explain what they're talking about?
Well, first of all, fuck Oklahoma.
Right.
And that's on the list of states that I wish to know go nowhere near. But,
I'm pretty sure that's the state motto for Nebraska, so...
Wouldn't be surprised. Or Texas. At least Texas football, anyway. So, Nyla Rose, as I'm pretty sure everyone kind of knows already, is a transgender woman. And, of course, transgender, people competing... easy for me to say. Transgender people competing in sports is already a hot-button issue to begin with. And because, at the end of the day, that's what people want to do when they spend thousands of dollars and to modify their bodies is so they could, win a swim meet or, win a professional wrestling match, obviously. And so the state of Oklahoma has decided to get all angry because Nyla Rose is wrestling cisgender women on AEW, or at least she did on the episode of AEW that was taped in Oklahoma, and they're throwing a fuss about it. I think they issued a warning. I imagine I'm not the only person who's already thought about this, but even if you want to argue, and I'm not going to fucking argue the transgender person, debate here, but even if you want to fucking argue that a transgender woman and a cisgender woman shouldn't compete in legitimate athletic competitions together, what exactly would Nyla Rose gain by having a professional wrestling match with a cisgender woman?
This is the Oklahoma Wrestling Commission. They do realize it's scripted, right? they got that memo?
This is Oklahoma, so maybe not. I mean, we don't know whether they think it's a shoot or not.
Maybe the
only match they've ever seen is that Sheamus Drew Gunther match from last year's WrestleMania when they were beating the shit out of each other. They may have thought, hey, this shit's real.
Yeah, but in which case, if that was their concern, I'd take one look at Nyla Rose and go, you know what, this woman can take care of herself. She's big and bad.
Well, yeah, that's the problem. You see, Sky Blue and Julia Hart, they're, petite women. They can possibly defend themselves, against...
Oh, that's their angle. It's they feel like it's a disparity in athletic prowess is where they're... I've been trying to figure out what their angle is on this, and I guess that would be it.
Okay, so if we're going that angle, if they say, okay, well, she's just too much bigger than her. Well, have they not looked at Nia Jax? Have they looked at Awesome Kong? I mean, there's a lot of very large female wrestlers who have been very successful. And, like Nia Jax and Liv Morgan, size-wise, that's not a fair fight, But
I think people would also make the argument that Kayla Harrison versus her opponent at UFC 300 wasn't a fair fight either, because that was a bantamweight fight, and Kayla came in like 170 after she rehydrated.
I mean, China against some of the guys she wrestled wasn't a fair fight either. She was bigger than them. So, I mean, they didn't have a problem when China was wrestling actual guys. So, it's just...
So what it comes down to then, Hagen, is what you're saying is essentially bigotry. They're saying we don't want a trans woman working shows in our state.
Basically.
Pretty much, and it also comes down to money, because... when China's wrestling Jeff Jarrett in 1999, because that's new and unique, it made a shit ton of money, so the Oklahoma State Athletic Commission got a nice chunk of change, and AEW probably drew 4,000 people, and so Oklahoma's cut of the gate probably wasn't as large. Go figure.
So they're only raising the issue because it wasn't as profitable and lucrative.
I'd imagine.
Well, I think they're also raising the issue because with the current political climate, it has become more acceptable to be openly bigoted, and so if they can, they're going to. Unfortunately, like you had to keep that quiet before, maybe, but now they don't think they have to.
So essentially, they're playing politics. They're trying to appease the alt-right reactionary conservatives. They're not even honest about their feelings here. They're not doing it because they're opposed to trans women. They're doing it to curry favor with a certain voting demographic.
They may personally be, but they know that their base will just feed off of it, so they do it.
Yeah, well, Tony Khan had a pretty substantial response to it in the Dynasty Free Media press event, and I don't want to quote the entire thing, but I'm pretty sure that all three of us have read it, and I want to ask Arya first what she thought of Tony's response, which was basically, we love Arya, we do love Arya, but we love Nyla, and we support her, and she's a wonderful person, and we don't agree with Oklahoma.
Oh, I'm sure Tony loves me. He just doesn't know it yet. But, I mean, I think it's great. And, I mean, you could argue at the end of the day, what else is he going to say? But this is Tony Khan, who doesn't answer any question ever. So the fact that he actually did answer this and came down with an opinion of it, in my opinion, speaks highly of him. And, for all the good and bad he can say about him as the boss of a wrestling company, at the end of the day, I don't know. It's like, I think he'd be a pretty good guy to work with. He's very open, he's very welcoming, and he's not pigeonholing anybody. And personally, I applaud it, and I'm happy, for that. Hopefully, it kind of ends here and it doesn't trickle down to things like TNA, which is El Shaw, and other companies may employ a transgender wrestler. Because let's be honest, there's not that many transgender wrestlers out there. I know at least one person on this panel tried to and failed epically a few months ago. But, all this is going to do, if it gains steam, gains momentum, and you have promoters who won't just take a stand, you're going to cost, a lot of wrestlers money because, well, it's not worth dealing with the hassle, and we can just hire another cisgender woman instead. So I applaud Tony for taking a stand, and hopefully this brings it to an end. I'll tap on wood.
Yeah. Well, one other thing I can think of to add to that is you said there are very few trans women working in professional wrestling, but I do know there are some non-binary and some asexual wrestlers working in wrestling, and I wonder what it would look like when the state of Oklahoma asks Max the Impaler to fill out the disclosure form, because they use they and them pronouns, and I get the feeling the only choices on that form in the state of Oklahoma are either male or female. So how are they going to deal with that if Max writes in they and expects them to understand and they don't?
I'd imagine that they have no freaking idea what to say or do about that.
What do you think, Hagen? What would they do in that situation?
Yeah, I think that they just see the smoke literally coming out of their ears. Does not compute. Does not compute.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma needs to get with the times in a really big way here. But let's.
I hadn't read Tony's thing yet. I pulled it up while we all were talking and read it. One thing I did notice was he mentioned that she's been a great part of the AEW Together program, which that program last summer. My daughter she's the president of her local chapter of Best Buddies at her high school, and Paul White showed up along with a couple others at the conference in Indiana to announce the partnership that AEW is having with Best Buddies. So that's all part of that. So I like that he's got her included in that.
I do as well, and I know that
more representation. And, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what he said in the statement, was more representation, more diversity, more inclusiveness, and those are all things we should strive for, which may or may not lead into the next point that I wanted to address on our topics tonight, because I don't think Vince McMahon really represents any of those goals, and yet people are concerned now that because he's cashing out the remainder of his TKO stock, there's going to be a new wrestling promotion on the horizon. And Arya, I know this is something you predicted, so I want to start with you on this topic.
For once, I may have gotten a prediction right in my life. So, I mean, like I said, it's like Vince is not somebody who enjoys doing nothing. And I know he's doing some traveling and he's hanging out with Trump, and, but at the end of the day, he's going to be bored as fuck, and I get that he's in his 80s. I get that, he's got lawsuits coming out the ass, but if he thinks that he can, make $1 at this shit, he's going to get back in. He's going to try to get back in anyway. And I'm not worried or whatever, because at the end of the day, people are going to do what they want to do. If they want to wrestle for him, that's their prerogative. If people want to buy tickets to see his wrestling, that's their prerogative. I can't sit here and say that, on the perfect day in the perfect situation, you won't find me in the audience, but I can tell you that it's highly unlikely. But, let's hope if he does, whatever he does do, hopefully he can keep it on the up and up and not be sexually harassing his employees or hiring his sexual conquests, and go from there.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the problem that I'm having with this idea, and I'm not trying to shoot down your prediction on purpose, but at the same time, I'm like, who is he going to hire that's not aware of his past track record? What television network is he going to partner with that's not aware of his past track record? It's in the Wall Street Journal like every other day at this point. It's all over every wrestling news website. If you dare to look up the name Vince McMahon, you find nothing but Janelle Grant splashed all over every search result. Who is, I don't mean this in a salacious way, but who's going to want to get into bed with him?
I mean, I don't know. TNA spent years finding networks you've never heard of to get their show on the air, so...
Hagen, I thought you were about to say something. If you were, go ahead.
So, what's the network? I say network, but supposedly like there's some network that like Nash D'Souza has or whatever, like his people, like, but it'll be people like that, or like some kind of if True Social stock doesn't keep going through the fucking floor like it has been, and that merger actually happens, if they ended up creating a, television channel or streaming service or something like that, then yeah, it basically have to be people in that area of politics. But then, there might be some wrestlers like. I know when Control Your Narrative was around, there was some discussion of maybe questionable politics of some people.
EC3, Braun Strowman, yeah, there were some
Which
issues.
I've been seeing a lot of EC3 because he's in OVW right now, as well as being an NWA World title holder. I've seen that title belt a lot recently. Yeah, it's I don't know, like, people, it would have to be people, I think, that either are willing to swallow their thoughts for a large enough paycheck, or people who, they're like, yeah, you know, he's an okay guy by me. And, you know, those are probably people that we want to work with, so, you know, more power to him, whatever.
But I think you also raised the point by bringing up EC3 that he would need to sign wrestlers who aren't already under contract. And we've got AEW, New Japan, TNA Wrestling, WWE, Ring of Honor. Well, that's really part of AEW, but you get what I'm saying. There are not going to be many talents left for him to cherry pick that aren't already signed to big deals somewhere.
I mean, NXT is just picking up Julia. You know, so even like, and she's coming from where Stardom and others.
Yes.
So, you know, and it sounds like they're trying to reposition NXT into being the third leg again instead of like just strictly developmental. It sounds like in the draft coming up, we may see some more talent move down, but not be considered like a downgrade necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if they're trying to build that up, yeah, I mean, Cody just went to SmackDown, which will probably last until the draft, and he'll get drafted back on Raw. But, you know, there's so many places to wrestle, and that doesn't even count, like, all of the different promotions around, like, you know, I've talked with you, Steve, before about a couple wrestlers I made friends with locally when they were wrestling here, Danny Moe and Facade. They're from Pittsburgh, but they were coming down to Kentucky, you know, every other week or whatever for wrestling at OVW and then at New South. And at one point, like, between the different feds they were in, Danny had something like 5 different belts and Facade had like 1. And then like a couple months later, I think she was down to 3, he had like 5. But like they're wrestling like all over the place, you know, get them booked and they're in there. So, you know, there's so many places to go. It's just whether, you know, is there consistent TV time? And when Mick Foley was at OVW recently, we got to get there and get photos and stuff and the signature. That was really cool. But he said that there's only 2 places in the country for independent feds to have weekly TV. One was NXT. If you're considering them, you know, because they were FCW before, it was like one's NXT has been consistent, and the other is in OVW for like 20 plus years because they've had over 1,000 straight episodes live.
Yeah.
With some like Thanksgiving week is obviously recorded on Tuesday or whatever. The week WrestleMania they had a Tuesday night. They also did it for $5 that night, so we went. That was awesome.
But speaking of getting autographs and photos and doing all sorts of fun things like that, that leads me to talking about Arya's WrestleMania weekend experience, because I'm sure the highlight of which might be his Sting. But I want to let Arya talk about it.
Indeed. And first of all, I hope everyone's appreciating the fact that I keep looking at my kitchen sink to make it look like I'm watching YouTube talk when y'all are talking.
I keep looking over at a video game monitor and a stack of plushies, so that's how I'm looking at Hagen. And then I look over here and I see a bunch of Sega Saturn games, and that's when I'm looking at you.
I didn't know you were doing the floating head thing. I'm using my iPad like I usually do. I've got it propped up, leaning up against the riser that's got my MacBook on it. So.
Yeah, in the beginning of the show, I was kind of looking my head to the left and right to see which direction it was going, and, you know. So I'm not looking at my window, I'm looking at my kitchen sink, damn it. So, WrestleMania, I did exactly what I was planning on doing. I woke up at 4 in the morning, I jumped in my car and drove to Philadelphia, 6 hours, so I could get to Philly, try to not run over half a dozen people, which, by the way, fucking A. people in Philly have more of a death wish than I did a few years ago, and that's pretty fucking bad.
You are at number 2. That's a good record.
Yeah. So I get down there, and like literally, I didn't even stop at my hotel. I just go straight to WrestleCon so I can meet Sting. And it's funny because the line to buy tickets was so annoyingly slow. So I just pulled out my phone and bought like the get-in ticket and the ticket to meet Sting. And literally, like, not that long after, the tickets were sold out. So, like, if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have been able to get there. And so, when I go over to stand in line to meet Sting, it's like, and I'm sure if you've been to a WrestleCon or wrestling convention, it's organized, but the lines are chaos. So it's like you're just trying to find the line, and I'm following the snake around what it feels like around the building. And eventually I get to the back of the line to meet Sting, and I've said this had to be at least 300, 350 people ahead of me. And by the time I got done, there had to be a good 100, 150 people behind me. It was insane.
You know, just briefly, this sounds like the line we were in for the NXT show. What was it, WrestleMania 32? Because we were in a line just like that.
Yes, but I mean that also that's probably a little more understandable because it was a show as opposed to being on the third floor of a hotel and snaking around elevators and conference rooms and God knows what else.
True.
So I met Sting. That was great. Part of the problem, at least that I had, because I was like, who the hell takes cash these days, right? So I'm like, just bring my debit card, we're all set. And it's like the vast majority of the people was cash only. Like you couldn't even buy the ticket online. And then on top of that, there was just inconsistent prices. Like I went to meet Arn Anderson, and Arn told me it was $60, but he said you got to buy the ticket from that person over there. I'm like, okay, I go to that person over there. It was like $150. I'm like, what? Like they just said it was 60, and like, whatever. So I didn't get a picture of Arn Anderson, but I did get one with the Boogeyman. So that was all good. And
extra for the worms?
Sadly, there were no worms. He did make a point to make sure I didn't say that I watched him when I was younger. So like, okay, whatever. The guy's like 60 years old. He still looks great, better than I ever have, but still. Then I did the Ring of Honor show. Oh, and I think it's important to announce that now, almost 2 weeks later, I think I finally thawed out from the Saturday show. Holy fuck, was it cold.
Yeah, a lot of people were complaining, and even the wrestlers were complaining that it was not a suitable environment to hold a WrestleMania in. Everybody, like, I felt bad watching Cody do jumping jacks while everybody else was doing their entrances for the main event. Like, he's not doing this to get ready for the match, he's just trying to stay warm.
You can see the heat lamps over top of them, and I know we discussed it in the podcast talking about WrestleMania, but it's like, yeah, sure, it was a dead crowd the first night, because they were just trying to huddle for warmth.
And Sunday was like at least 10, 15 degrees warmer, so like it was a little better, but still, I was in 3 layers just to stay warm-ish. Like Saturday, like it's funny because like I went to both WrestleManias at MetLife Stadium, and it wasn't that cold. And you would think, okay, it's further northeast, around the same time of year, so it would be, just as cold or maybe even a little bit warmer going to Philly. Nope. I was just shocked it didn't rain.
Yeah. I honestly don't know why they choose open-air stadiums in the Northeast for WrestleMania weekend, which is why I'm kind of not too surprised that they haven't announced where WrestleMania will be next year. Usually they do it on the Raw the night after, but now the rumor mill is buzzing with the fact that they're either going to move it to early March, which would be even worse weather, or late May, which would be fabulous weather depending on where they hold it. And one of the rumored cities is Las Vegas. And if you want someplace that's going to be warm pretty much all year round, it would be Vegas. But you might not want to do it any later than late May because it starts getting stupidly hot there.
I thought Peter was saying something about having it in Minnesota again, because there you could do a domed stadium.
That is one of the contenders, is Minneapolis, Minnesota, but apparently Las Vegas is in the mix as well. Arya, being that you were in Philadelphia, do you have a preference? Would you want to go to Minneapolis, or would you want to go to Las Vegas?
Well, they're both dome stadiums, so either way is fine. I personally have no idea why we like making our favorite professional sports teams here in the Northeast freeze their asses off. Because, like, the nearest dome stadium would either be Detroit or Toronto, depending on what you consider the closest to the Northeast. And if you go down the East Coast, I think the first dome stadium is Atlanta. And so it's like, I don't get it. Like, Buffalo's building a new stadium, and of course there's no fucking roof on it because it wouldn't be a Bills game if there wasn't 3 feet of snow on the ground. Which is funny because I was supposed to go to a game a few years ago that got canceled due to 6 feet of snow on the ground. Like, those damn pussies not playing football in 6 feet of snow. But honestly, my favorite WrestleMania experiences have been in warm areas: Santa Clara, Miami, New Orleans.
Dallas.
So, I have my ups and downs about Dallas in general.
Oh, that's one of my favorite because we hung out together. That was great.
Yeah, yes, that would be one of the ups. The downs would just be the shittiest hotel I've ever stayed at in my life, and just I don't want to say a subpar WrestleMania, but it's just like it wasn't a very good show.
Now, if they have Vegas, there's certainly a wide variety of levels of hotels. I know the first time that I went to Vegas, we stayed off-strip. There was only a few blocks off-strip, and it was fine. And then the second time I went to stay at Treasure Island, because it was a 4-star hotel on the Strip, but it was the cheapest of the 4 stars on the Strip. So, I can't remember what the name of the place we stayed at the first time. I had to look around and figure it out. But any place, if you got something as big as WrestleMania, expect those prices to go up. I live in Louisville. Prices for hotel rooms literally triple for Derby weekend. Even like Motel 6, it might be like $60 a night normally. $180.
Yep.
Like, it's ridiculous. And like nice hotels, like downtown, the Galt House or something, $600, $1,000 a night, not even remotely out of the possibility. So,
which is why they need to announce WrestleMania where it's going to be as soon as possible, because the only way you're going to get a good hotel rate is if you book almost a year in advance.
Well, it sounds like Nick said that it's one of the two, and that it sounds like if Minneapolis doesn't get it this next year, it would be the year after. So if we have Vegas went out for 25, we have Minneapolis for 26. I think it would be really cool if, since we're starting to have a lot more international PLEs, if we have those next 2 years lined up, 2027, maybe they go to England. Maybe the show in France is completely off the hook this year, and they say, we're going to Paris for WrestleMania in 27. Like, that'd be nuts. I would totally be talking to my sister, because my sister and her husband are both stewards for Delta, and her husband is French. I'd be like, can you get us some plane tickets to cover that? Because that would cut a lot down, and I would totally try to get Skylar to WrestleMania. That'd be awesome.
That would be. But you did segue me into a topic, whether you were trying to or not, Hagen, so thank you for that. Nick Khan saying at one of the interviews he's been doing, I think it was Sports Business Journal that reported this, that they were going to move to a formula, and correct me if I'm wrong, they said Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, Survivor Series, SummerSlam would be in the United States, and all other shows would be international. Now, Go ahead, Arya.
It would be the U.S. or Canada, and then all the other shows would be international.
Is this a good plan? What do you think, Arya?
I think it can be, because at this point, no one, well, I can't say no one, but essentially no one buys pay-per-view. It's all on Peacock and soon to be Netflix. So the time that it airs doesn't really matter. So if they can get, these international countries to give them $1 million to bring Backlash, to France or, wherever else, like, maybe it's not to take it, because you're not only going to get the $1 million or whatever you're going to get, you're still going to get the gate money, you're still going to get the concession money, you're still going to get all that shit. And at the end of the day, even if you do if you did Backlash in Boston, okay, you're going to make $1 million off ticket sales, but Boston's not going to give you another $1 million just to hold the show there. So, bottom line, it works for the company, and it's not going to make a major difference in viewership, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's not on exclusively on the WWE Network. It's not just on pay-per-view. So it doesn't matter when the show airs, people are still going to watch it at some point. Hell, my best friend is still in the middle of watching Night 2 of WrestleMania 2 weeks later, so it's,
Is that your potential new co-host for the TNA show that you were talking about?
No, someone else. This is my former co-host who grew tired of Mid-South Wrestling when he realized it didn't move at the pace of SmackDown.
Oh, that would be KJ then, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, there are some potential new programs coming here on the Angry Marks Podcast Network, but we're going to wait to see how that develops. And in the meantime, Hagen, what do you think of the international shows? Because that's going to change when they air if you and Skylar watch them live.
Yeah, I definitely did not wake up at 4:30 in the morning to watch Elimination Chamber, but I woke Skylar up at 10 o'clock, said, dude, come downstairs, we were watching Elimination Chamber. Like, as soon as I got up, I stayed off the internet so I didn't have anything spoiled, and we got right to it. But I think, if they want to keep those big 5 shows in the U.S. or Canada, or possibly Mexico, like Mexico City, something could be potentially a good thing for them. If they want to keep those shows to North America, that's within their right. But, when they had SummerSlam in the UK, that was huge. What was it where they actually drew the castle?
Clash at the Castle.
Okay, they Clash Castle rather than doing SummerSlam. But they had Clash Castle. They made that one up. But they totally could have said, we're going to do SummerSlam in England this year. They did it in 92, they could do it again. I think if they say, we're going to keep these 5 in the U.S., and the rest will be international, and then, those 5, maybe they rotate them. You get 5 shows you're going to keep basically here, but this year, all 5 are in the U.S. Next year, the first show, they're going to put the Rumble in, going to do it in Italy. I don't know, whatever. Spain, maybe. You're going to do that in Spain. You're going to go in Barcelona, going to have a really big show, and it'll be cool. And then the rest of the show, those 5 shows are in the U.S. Next year, Rumble's back. Oh, Mania. We're going to have Mania in England this year. So every once in a while, you have the big show end up somewhere else. But at the same time, their core fan base is probably still North America centric, so it makes sense to them on that level, especially since most of the wrestlers are living here. So flights domestically versus flights internationally, there's definitely extra costs for doing things overseas. So I understand that, and taking the chamber over to the Saudis, that was a huge deal. Because that had never left the States before.
Yeah, and taking it to Perth couldn't have been easier or inexpensive either.
No, and I honestly wonder if they might not say, okay, we're gonna keep one in Europe now.
Yeah, just leave a touring cage there. Like, we need a cage that we don't have to transport from the United States.
Yeah, find some place that it would be reasonably inexpensive. We're gonna keep one over in like India, so we can take it anywhere in the southeast, or over to Japan. It wouldn't be as far to transport. And then keep one in Europe. So you have 3 cages spread around, and they're talking about moving more into India. I could see, do we have a big PLE happen in India?
Yeah, in New Delhi, for example. Yeah, that would be believable, realm possibility. I don't know, but it certainly seems like a market where if they just called up Great Khali and said, hey, do some local promotion for us, they would get a huge turnout for whatever PLE they brought there. Because he's like a national hero in that country.
They did a big show just this last year, didn't they? Drew, I think Drew went there for that. A lot of people went over there, but it wasn't televised thing in the U.S. But.
Right, yeah, that's why I was trying to remember, and I don't think it was ever aired. I think it was just for that market. But Arya, were you going to say something?
Do people in India understand Khali?
I'm going to assume they understand him more than we do in the United States.
I mean, they don't have Brian Alvarez over there to make up his end of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can sort of just use drops to figure out what Khali was saying, like, lust, piss. It sounded like lust and piss, but I think he was trying to say rest in peace. That was as close as he could get.
When he screamed that he was abandoned at the Red Robin, I still have no idea what he actually said, but, it sounds about right.
I love that State Farm commercial they got going right now with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Saying, neighbor, and the director's like, it's neighbor. Yeah, neighbor.
That's what I said, neighbor.
Picking on Khali's speech there, just like, yeah, that reminds me of this. Love it.
He should have said, it's not a tumba. Right. That would have been the peak of the commercial.
I walked into the living room the other night and I was like, is this kindergarten cop? It was like towards the very end of the movie. And like, yeah, okay, I thought so. They already had that scene.
So, my final topic on the sheet, and then you guys can feel free to suggest anything else that you want. Jon Moxley winning the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship from Tetsuya Naito at Windy City Riot in Chicago. Not only does that make Moxley the first person to hold the AEW World title, the WWE World title, and the New Japan World title, I think it also makes him the first non-New Japan employed wrestler to hold the title. Foreigners have held the title, but he doesn't even work for New Japan primarily. He's signed to AEW first and foremost, so either way you look at it, that's a historic event. Arya, what do you think this means, not only for future Forbidden Door shows, but just in history, what do you think this means for New Japan and AEW? Where does this lead them?
At the end of the day, I think it just proves that, they have a really strong relationship. Because, New Japan has worked with, how many companies in the past, but, you never saw a Ring of Honor wrestler or a TNA guy or, I would say a WCW guy, but Scott Norton won the fucking title once. But, for the most part, you never see them put the world title on somebody who isn't primarily a New Japan guy. Personally, honestly, around the time that Mox really started going a lot more last year, the year before, and started doing death matches, that's around the time that I stopped, religiously watching and following New Japan, because I always looked at New Japan as like that last beacon of super serious, strong style wrestling that you're not going to sit here and watch, everyone bleed at a drop of a hat. Then they fucking Jun Kasai on one show, and I think fucking Enzo Amore was on a couple shows, and it's like, okay, that's like, I get that the talent level is low because they've been losing a lot of people lately, but honestly, yeah, that's kind of when I stopped watching and following so much. And, you know, the funny thing is I don't think I've ever watched a King of Pro Wrestling title match, and reading results from those things, I can't imagine enjoying it. And I thought I'd say I don't enjoy corny wrestling, but I don't, like, I don't know, I never look at New Japan as the place that I want to see my corny, jokey, fun wrestling. I want to watch fun, hard-hitting wrestling. And, I mean, I get Mox is going to be a bit of that, but it's like still, it's like, it brings up stuff that either makes me a little queasy or stuff that it's like, in my mind, this isn't the New Japan style, even though, I mean, anything can be the New Japan style. But to me, it's like, it's more of a turn-off than a turn-on for me for Mox to have the belts.
It's watering down and changing their product from what it has been for you.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I'm not going to say that take is wrong. I will say that I feel like Jon Moxley bleeds at the drop of a hat, and if that's something that you don't want to see, that's very reasonable to not want to tune in for him. But I also don't think Jon Moxley needs to. I think he wants to. I think there's some inner part of his psyche that it feels like torturing himself is entertainment for other people, and I choose not to deeply analyze that topic. Somebody else can. But I've seen him wrestle many, many times as Dean Ambrose without ever bleeding once, and I know he thinks that part of his career sucked, but that was his transition from being Jon Moxley to being the wrestler that he is today, was his tenure in the Shield and winning the world title in the WWE. That experience made him who he is today, whether he likes it or not. So I would say he is a formidable wrestler in technical ability who just chooses to bleed a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting because, WWE has been very PG for a long time now, and and other than occasional things like Brock deciding in a match, I'm going to get busted open the hard way here, and everything you heard after was, no, that was not necessarily the plan. That was just Brock said, I'm going to bleed tonight, and nobody told him not to.
Brock does what Brock wants.
Exactly, and apparently that leads to Brock never being around again, but for other reasons. But I was actually, like, I know that they were intentionally going a little edgier with the Rock and Cody. I was honestly surprised when they had Cody Blade in the beatdown and stuff, and it's like, it fits the storyline what they're doing, and I'm not opposed to blood in a match. Obviously, I love going back and watching the '95 King of the Death match for Terry Funk and Cactus Jack, even if it's not the best match ever. It's just crazy, and sometimes you just want to see it crazy. But it feels like AEW maybe overdoes blood a little bit, and Moxley especially. The way he bleeds in the match, like, dude, could you not? You probably walk through the back, and you're not even back to your dressing room. You're randomly bleeding. Like, it's just what it seems like. He bleeds that much.
Sometimes I feel like you could walk up to him with a newspaper and swat him in the head, and he'd start bleeding.
I mean, is he gonna start? Is he gonna go put the quarter in like Abdullah?
We're probably getting close to that point with him. I'm sure he's gigged enough times. There are track marks there.
Like, you look at, like, Dusty's forehead or, like, Ric Flair and something, you can see, like, the years of abuse of how much they bladed. And I think that, it's probably a better thing that we don't have as many people blading as often as they used to. But,
I've always argued the counter proposition to that is wrestlers, like we just said about Brock Lesnar, are going to do what they want to do anyway. And if they're going to get blood, I would rather they do it by bleeding than trying to bust each other open the hard way, like when Brock Lesnar gave Randy Orton a concussion. trying to elbow him to cut open and get blood. I would rather wrestlers gig than concuss each other.
People
Zach
say that's
Gallen making Mr. McMahon go lead the hard way with the steel chair.
Yeah, that doesn't strike me as a wise proposition. Arya, what were you going to say?
Brock, the same thing to Roman at that one WrestleMania they had, where they did the elbows to the face to bust Roman open. And that shit that was going to piss me off is like, if you want to say blading is barbaric, fine, then don't do blood at all. But then to have the guy who, by the way, the Orton thing came right after Brock failed 2 legitimate steroid tests given to him by the Nevada State Athletic Commission or UFC, whatever their drug testing policy is. And, then it's like a month later, it's like, okay, Randy, we want you to lay down in the ring and allow this man to elbow you in the face as hard as he can to draw blood. Like, honestly, the fact that Randy agreed to it may have shown he was concussed before the damn match. But,
doesn't seem like a wise move, no.
Yeah. And, by the way, talking about track marks, I'm always amazed that more people don't do the Bret Hart thing where he would always cut along his hairline so he didn't leave all these scars on his forehead. And, I mean, the last time I checked, Bret doesn't have a forehead full of nasty scars, but Bret bled a lot more than he was supposed to, because he was able to make it look like it was real, unlike Flair, who, bladed right on camera at WrestleMania the one year. And, yeah.
Didn't he also, in his supposed last match ever, which I think was in Memphis, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he also gig right in front of the camera and then fake a heart attack right after that?
Yes. And I think it was Nashville, because it was supposed to be at the TNA Asylum.
Oh, right,
yeah. Al Snow and like half of OVW were down there. It was on the Wrestlers series on Netflix about OVW. They were all down there. They were all at the SummerSlam in Nashville. I didn't see them, but Skyler and Farrell's boyfriend at the time saw them, and they ran over and said hi, because like Asheville and a bunch of people were all over there, and I was like, oh crap, we missed them? It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
I think the funniest blood we talked about on the WrestleMania cast, the look on Roman's face when there was blood on his nose, it was very dodgeball. You made me bleed my own blood. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
Yeah, well, Roman's just good at looking salty about just about everything. That's one thing I'm going to miss about him as world champion. And I didn't think there was anything I was going to miss, but Roman just being constantly annoyed at everything brought me so much joy. I loved to see him get just wildly irritated by the antics of the bloodline or his opponents. He had no shortage of ire for everyone as the tribal chief.
I'm really curious where things are going now. You've got seemingly Solo taking over the bloodline, and they got Tama Tonga in there, which that's all very interesting to me. I love watching Haku and the Islanders as a kid, and we've all heard the stories about Haku. Haku and Harley Race, the only 2 men Andre the Giant was afraid of.
Well, Paul even brought that up during his induction speech. He's like, if we have any problems, Haku is right there.
Yeah, I would feel completely safe as long as I was on Haku's good side. Yes,
exactly. All right.
One other recent thing that I thought would be interesting to talk about. You and I talked a little bit about the unfortunate freak accident for Rhea Ripley.
Right.
Because I know that Arya may not have heard me talk about on the cast before, but when Raw was here in Louisville back in 2021, we went and Skyler was 7, and he was barely taller than the rail, but he was over about 6 feet from our seat because we were right on the ramp down, and he tried to hold his hand out for every wrestler came past. Nobody gave him a high five or anything until Rhea came down. And she comes over, and I've got a video of her. She stops, she looks over, she sees him, and smiles, and leans over, gives him a fist bump, and leans back. I pulled up the Raw episode, and the guy who was the in charge of all the video and everything that left recently, he was the one who did all the hypercuts. Well, on the actual broadcast of it, Rhea smiles, she starts to lean, and it cuts something over by the front. And it cuts back to her as she's leaning back from this button.
Oh,
really?
That is so rude.
But, we already appreciated, what Rhea was doing in the ring. And she was still a babyface, I think had the belt at that point. But after that, and her being literally the only wrestler the entire night that gave him a fist bump like that, we've all been solid Rhea fans ever since. And I was talking when we did the cast for WrestleMania, saying how, I definitely thought that it was the right move keeping the belt on her. Becky didn't need the belt, especially since while we're sure Becky's going to re-sign, she hasn't yet, and she's going to be just as over. It's not going to drop her at all by losing to Rhea, but Rhea continuing to just build this dominance for that much longer, maybe till SummerSlam or something, just makes so much sense. But now, they were doing a, she's trying to hurt you angle, and then, oops, it actually did hurt her. And she's going to be out for months, probably until about SummerSlam. So you're going to have the, I lost it, but I never lost it. Nobody beat me. No one's still better than me. And they're moving so fast, too. And next week we're going to, they took a tournament for a month to pick out the number one contender, but now, next week, we got to have a winner for the belt. And so many possibilities of who could return and get it. Maybe Liv ends up getting it and holds it until Rhea comes back, and then Rhea beats the crap out of her. And they've switched because, obviously, Liv is moving to being a heel, and Rhea can easily come back as the babyface, trying to win back what she never lost. And the crowd's already completely behind her. It could end up being even better for her. I don't know.
All right. How would you book it then? How would you book Rhea's comeback? Would you have Liv the champion at the time, and she comes back for revenge?
I think that would be the best idea. Personally, I just, have Rhea blitz her in 30 seconds. I'll be honest, I was watching that episode of Raw, and I turned it off because I was so pissed off when they did the Liv Morgan throwing the chair Sabu style at Rhea's head. And it's I didn't even notice anything else that happened in that. I didn't notice Liv throw her shoulder first into the wall. So when it came out that she hurt her shoulder, I'm like, how did the chair that hit her head hurt her shoulder? But that whole thing just pissed me off because hitting people in the fucking head just pisses me off. And I say that as someone who took an accidental chair shot to the head. It's not fun. Those don't feel good, And I was just so mad I turned the damn show off. I never even saw the angle. But, at this point, I think you would have to have it unless you put the belt on someone else, like Jade Cargill, for instance. And when Rhea comes back, she now has Liv to go through and kick the ass up, and then moves on to Jade or whoever the champion is by, October, November or so. At this point, the surgery, I think she's going to be out, 3 to 6 months? They could do the easily predictable thing where you just hold her off and make her a surprise entrant in next year's Royal Rumble. But who knows if they want to hold her off that long, especially if she's good to go come August, September.
Yeah, that might be too long.
I believe that last year that Dominic had the most matches in WWE, and Rhea had the most for the women, and Priest third for the men. So even if it wasn't a actual injury, I could see them saying if she wanted some time off, it's easily very well earned. But sadly, there is an actual injury. I've been thinking, in trying to book things in advance, that, having Rhea keep the belt, and then, Money in the Bank rolls around, well, you've got a lot of options, because you can have somebody like Becky trying to get that again, you can have someone like Liv going in to get it, continue the revenge tour. But honestly, I I don't know if I would try putting the belt on Jade yet, but I would be very interested in seeing somebody like Tiffany Stratton win Money in the Bank. She definitely put on quite a show at Elimination Chamber, and then just kind of nothing with WrestleMania, but seems to be popping back up now to challenge Bayley and stuff. So they're already definitely building a program for her, and I think that that could be very interesting. But you've also got more people coming up very soon from NXT, so who knows what they're going to do with all that.
Yeah, I think only time in the draft will tell what they do with that. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut it here because I do have to do some packing for an upcoming trip. So I'm going to get cheap plugs from everybody at this time, starting with Arya.
Are we just one of us going to go on a trip the day after all these shows we do? So, anyway, listen to the Something Else Podcasting Network, available not just on AngryMarks.com, but also on all your favorite streaming platforms. We look at Mid-South Wrestling and World Class Championship Wrestling from 41 years and 1 day ago. And on Thursdays, we look back in time at the Smoky Mountain Wrestling and for the Smoky Mountain Rewatch Along Project. We're on episode number 51 already. Motherfucker, we've been doing that for a year. So check it out. It's free. Free. It's available everywhere. Listen to it or don't, but I prefer you listen to it.
I prefer you listen to it as well. And I'm sure that Skyler would appreciate if Logan Paul would give him a call about Prime. But other than that, what do we have to plug, Hagen?
Not a whole lot. Honestly, I'm a couple weeks away from being finished with my first year back in school working on associate's degree at 47. So I'm just trying to finish up the last of my classes and playing World of Warcraft recently. So, and hanging out with the kids because I got 4 of them. So
Damn.
Keeps me busy.
It sure does.
My brother's got 4 of them, and as much as I love them, he lives in Pennsylvania. I'm usually in New York by the time I can stop hearing them scream in my head.
You mentioned Enzo earlier. Enzo has been showing up on OVW, and he showed up a couple weeks ago apparently, and screwed one of the guys out of his title, knocked him out, and then Certified Luke Curtis beat him for it. So yeah, it's funny. He's been showing up. Like filming little videos while he's driving and stuff, and talking smack, and showing up occasionally in person. But yeah, I hadn't expected to see Enzo. But then we also saw Scotty Too Hotty show up one week. So,
well, maybe Scotty should go over to Enzo and say, when it comes to the worm, you can't teach that. Alright, this has been Thursday Night AMP with my gracious co-hosts Arya Whitner and Hagen Kirk. Thank you all for viewing and or listening, whichever way you're enjoying the show, and we'll see you again soon. Good night for now.